Okay, so I think this is where, this is where I'm going to hand over to our next speakers. So we have, starting today, is Adam Liddell, who is the Tourette Syndrome Australian Ambassador. But I have to say, I think he's better known for season 5 of The Voice. But he's pretty famous within the Tourette Syndrome community as well. So thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Hello guys, welcome. Hello internet, how you doing? I'm just going to get this up quickly, just have to get my presentation up because I'm a bit of an unorganised person. But I cannot believe the amount of people that are here today. This is absolutely insane. I think you guys should all be very proud of yourselves for coming because it's not only supporting your children or whoever, yourself or whoever has Tourette's, supporting everyone else as well. You know, all of us, seeing that there's such a great community around this Tourette syndrome, and there's people that are willing to travel from around the country to come and show support is absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much. Let's got this up.
Welcome to Pandora.
So many security options.
Favorite movie?
Alright, let's get this going.
Wibby, Nintendo.
That's probably the show, I think.
Cocker Spaniel. Good evening.
Technical difficulties. There we are.
Turn around now.
Let's go through my Google Drive. That's cool.
Somebody once told me.
If there's nothing there, that's bad. Shouldn't take too long, don't worry. It's good old Australian internet, nowhere near as good as the US, but hopefully we'll catch up someday. Got the NBN, but that's a bit of a flop. Right, so I must say I'm pretty scared as well for this talk because I have Tourette's, but one of the hardest things for me to do is present in front of people with Tourette's. It's just so difficult. With the ADHD and everything as well, trying to concentrate on one thing, but then hearing all these funny tics is kind of a... it's a skill in itself. Hi. Let's see a show of hands. How many people here actually have Tourette's? Okay, so fair few. And how many here are parents of Tourette's? Definitely outweighs the number of Tourette's okay. Hi. There we go, perfect. Alright, well, hi. Welcome. My name is Adam Liddell, of course. Logan. I was on The Voice in 2016. I was runner-up of The Voice, which was pretty cool. And yeah, I'm the TSAA ambassador. There's so many A's. And I basically go around the country kind of trying to promote awareness for Tourette's through my gigs and my music and all my stuff. Like, dude, come on. I'm so sorry. You know what? This isn't necessary. I'm going to count through my hotspot. It's modern technology.
Jack it off.
Actually.
Homer Simpson's jacking off.
Is this going to work? There we go. Perfect. Okay. My story so far. I'm here to talk to you guys about today because today you're going to have a lot of, academic people and, scientists and doctors and all that stuff talking about Tourette's. I'm here to tell you the kind of personal side of Tourette's, coming from my eyes and some tips and tricks that I can try and help you all out with. Can I get notes up as well as I get distracted? Let's get distracted. That's
got him. Woo! Zebras aren't racist. They're amazing creatures.
I'm sorry, this is going terribly so far, trying to get it all up. It's a different projector setup than what I'm used to. Once I get this up, we'll be good to go. Let's go. And I'm strapped for time as well. Let's just get to the next slide. So basically, before I start the presentation, I do want to say there is no one size fits all, like Homer Simpson is telling us that. It is a very different disorder for everyone. Everyone has different experiences with it, different tics, so it can vary a lot when it comes to what I'm saying. So basically what I'm... sorry, I'm running around. My experience, my presentation I'm going to be giving today is purely kind of based off of my experiences and the ones that I've seen from other people. obviously not everything that I will talk about will be applicable to your child or to you if you have Tourette's. It's the same kind of thing with medication. A lot of people, ask me, what medication should my child take to get rid of his tics? And I'm like, well, I spent months trying to figure out what combinations to take. I went through periods where I was like falling asleep in class and depressed and all that. It was absolutely terrible. I am just about to get this all set up and then we can go. But also, I'm not going to be talking much about medication in this presentation because there are a few people, I imagine, in the room that are against the use of medication. Those antipsychotics and all the amphetamines and stuff that you use for treating Tourette syndrome and the other disorders associated with it. So I'm going to be talking about mainly kind of different things you can do to change the lifestyle of your kid to try and help them and benefit them so that they can succeed in school. Or life, sorry.
Let's read the dictionary.
Alright, wait, here we go. Perfect. It's up. It's running. I've got it. Okay, fantastic. Finally got it. Alright, so, firstly, one thing I need to point out that I think you guys are pretty well aware of, and it is a bit of a scary thing to see. There is no cure, at least not at the moment. There's no cure for Tourette's. There's a way to manage it, but there obviously is no cure. So this is why we've got to find ways, instead of trying to alleviate the symptoms and get rid of the Tourette's and the other disorders associated with it, we should learn to try and base our mold our lives around accepting it and getting others to accept it as well. Because we are different, so why do we have to change, So who am I? That's me, TikTok, there we go. I'm the voice runner-up 2016. I'm a Tourette, which is what I like to call my fans, but it's also what I like to call people with Tourette's, Tourette syndrome, Tourette. That's awesome. So all those people that put their hand up in the beginning for Tourette's, you guys are Touretters now. I'm also the TSAA ambassador. I've been the ambassador since 2016, and I must say it has been an absolute pleasure and wonder working. I might not be the easiest person to work with. I am very bad with answering emails, that's one thing. I'm sure Rosita will know. But I have loved every minute of it, and I remember when I was first diagnosed, looking at the TSAA website and thinking, oh, there's no ways I could ever, join them. I thought it was some like elite society or something. It seemed really special. I'm also a singer and songwriter, so I go around the country performing and write my own music, trying to kind of spread the message of Tourette's and everything, basically, my image. And I'm also a recent Year 12 graduate, so that'll probably help with what I'm going to be talking about. So, I'm going to be discussing 2 topics in this presentation. The last one I'm going to touch on fairly briefly. It won't be a long-winded topic. But the first one I want to talk about is, you probably would have guessed, school. I stayed up so late doing that. It was so much fun. Honestly, can't get it out. Okay, so, let's talk about school. Starting school. Now, I was actually talking to this lovely girl down here about this. Becoming the new kid. A lot of kids during their life will have to go through a phase where they are the new kid at a school. Whether it's, the whole cohort moving into Year 7 at a new high school, or you moving into a new school separately. I know what it's like to be the new kid. I've attended 9 different schools in my life. That's a fair bit. 3 different countries, England, South Africa, and Australia. So that's a lot of moving around for me. And I've been the new kid at the school 6 times. So it has been a bit of a challenge to get, associated with the school. So I know that pretty well. Now schools can be fairly tough on children that, misbehave and sometimes don't behave they don't appropriate to what they should be. So for children, if they have Tourette's, they might not even know they have Tourette's. It can be extremely tough. So that's why it is important that we can try and find ways to help them out. So I'm going to be showing you what I call the school essentials for a Tourette. Accommodation. Understanding. And don't worry, I'll get into these later. So they're just one-worded things now. Emotional support. Support for your child's Tourette syndrome needs, and support for your child's other needs. Now, I also want to talk about comorbid disorders. I'm going to be focusing on them fairly heavily because I have a fair few comorbid disorders. And they are around 86% of people with Tourette's also have some other disability that comes along with it, which we like to call the comorbid disorders. I know there's different ways people talk about it and all that stuff. The comorbid disorders can range from, ADHD, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, autism spectrum disorder, and so on and so on. There's an absolute ton of them. So I want to tell you about what my differences are. I don't like to call them disabilities because, we can still do everything we want to. There's nothing stopping us from, getting on a train or, flying to the moon or anything. We can do whatever. So my differences. Now, if I have Tourette syndrome and obviously have other differences as well, but if I was to rank them in order of the most noticeable to the public, it'd be as follows. Tourette syndrome, ADHD, anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, sensory processing disorder, that's the last one. So those are my 6 companions that I have. I like to call them my companions because, as much as they do give me a hard time, I've learned to love them. Now, if I was to arrange them and order them in the most problematic to my everyday life, it'd be anxiety first, depression second, ADHD third, Tourette syndrome fourth, and then obsessive compulsive disorder and sensory processing disorder. So as you can see, while Tourette's may be the most intrusive to the public's life, while it may be the most noticeable disability that I have, it's one of the more manageable ones. I mean, compared to majority of the things I have, it's more manageable than, the anxiety and depression. And I think a lot of cases of Tourette's, there are kids there that, us Tourette's, we know how to deal with that. We've dealt with our tics. We know how to deal with it. We've learned strategies. As you get older, you learn to deal with it. You don't care anymore. You've got tics, so what? Anxiety, depression, and ADHD, that stuff's tough. That's tough to deal with. You can't just accept it. Actually, it really does affect everything. So, go through that. So now, having completed all my years of schooling with Tourette's and ADHD, I am very familiar with the next topic. School discipline. Is it a tick or not? Now, just a disclaimer, I'm not a parent or a teacher. I hope not. Never have been. Maybe one day I'll be a parent, not a teacher. I am, however, or was, a pretty naughty kid. And I put naughty inside those, not exclamation, apostrophes, because it's, quotation marks there, okay. It's, society defines it as naughty, but if a kid is doing something that they can't control, it's not them misbehaving, it's them doing something that they're being forced to do. So, my misadventures are as follows. These are some of the experiences I had during school, and I'm sure some of you with the Tourette's and ADHD package can definitely relate. Calling people names. That was probably my biggest issue. My absolute biggest one was calling people names. I was never a mean person. I loved helping people out. I loved, I still do now, obviously, if I'm doing this, but I've always loved helping out the kids and being friends with people. But I had such a bad thing of calling people names. And obviously with Tourette's and ADHD, you have the impulsivity side of it. We're very prone to not having that filter in our brain, and that can sometimes even coincide with our actual life. It can filter into our actual life. So even though it might not be a tick, we've still got that impulsivity. We're still saying what we think. We're still doing all that stuff, even though it's not a tick, because our brains are getting used to it. See, we know we shouldn't be doing certain things, but by the time we realise we've done it, it's too late.
No, you cannot.
I'd also distract kids in class. I would get pretty bored in class. I enjoyed learning. I've always loved school, but I would see some kids sitting there and I thought they weren't having fun, so I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, let's prod him and have a good time. I thought he would have a lot of fun. The teacher didn't. So I'd also shout out answers all the time. And yeah, there we go. I can see I get you. Yeah, exactly. Shouting out the answers because it's just the impulsivity comes into play again. And then I also did some pretty stupid, dangerous things that my dumb, impulsive, 9-year-old self did. I was at boarding school and I decided, I thought it would be a good idea to, thought's not the right word, I didn't think, I just did it. I jumped off a second-story balcony just because I was like, whoa, let's do it. I got probation, so that was... But I want to talk about the shouting out answers example, because I think that's kind of a good one to start with. This, in my personal opinion, is based on a mix of Tourette syndrome and ADHD. And the reason I'm speaking about ADHD a lot is not only because I have it, but because 60 to 80% of people with Tourette's have ADHD as well. That's quite a bit. So it's the highest rate for comorbid disorders. So, I want you to picture the scene in your head. You're sitting in a classroom and the teacher is doing a topic that you really enjoy. You're listening to what the teacher's saying, and then all of a sudden you're lost in your thought because of ADHD. And you're thinking about how strange that piece of dust that just landed near your desk looks. You eventually fade back into the classroom as the teacher asks a question. You know this answer. I mean, come on, you love this topic. This is like the best topic. You know this answer. You want to impress everyone. You want to tell the teacher. You want to, and then you yell it out. Wrong one. Excitement. That's the stage. We've got the excitement building. You know the answer. You want everyone to know. You think everyone's going to have fun. You're going to have the teacher's going to think you're awesome. So you do that. And all of a sudden, before you can even tell your brain, hey, let's shout out the answer. Bam! Impulsion. Straight comes the answer out. Comes out. And right after that, you realise, oh my gosh, what have I done? I've just yelled out the answer. And that's when the third stage comes. This is like the stages of denial, grieving. Regret. We don't like doing it. God, with Tourette's as well, when I'm sitting in here as well, at the back there, ticking, I feel awful for the people presenting because I still feel bad. At school, I'd interrupt the class with my tics and stuff, but I never wanted to. Every time I ticked, I felt absolutely awful because I felt like I was, distracting the teacher, distracting the class, and it wasn't a very nice feeling. So after your big, lovely yell out of the answer, your teacher looks at you and says, see me after class for detention. We get the punishment phase, which is obviously the fourth step, which is what is reinforced a lot in schools with detention and stuff. And this scenario actually happened to me a fair bit in school. One example I can have was with the exact dust thing as well. I was focusing on the dust. And my punishment was to write out words from a section of the dictionary with the definition. But I wasn't allowed to pick the letter X because that's like no words at all. But do you think that got me to stop shouting out answers during my time at school? No. So, repeat. Excitement, impulsion, regret, punishment, repeat. It's always going to repeat. You have to have a different method of dealing with it. It doesn't work. Does punishing someone with Tourette's and their comorbid disorders really help in changing someone's behaviour? Us Tourettists know that what we're doing is wrong. We know the theory, but we struggle in actually executing it. We know that you're not supposed to yell out stuff in class. We know you're not supposed to call people names. But by the time we remember that, we've already done it. So what can you do? Now, firstly, this is a bit of an aggressive thing that's about to pop up. No one take offense. I don't believe anyone does this, but don't ever punish... Oh, wrong one. Don't ever punish a child for their tics. And you might be thinking, oh, of course I wouldn't do that. But there are some tics that are so complex or something that sometimes you might just not know if it's a tic or not. I think the most important thing to do is keep that constant communication with your child. Try and, figure out, is it a tic? See, are they experiencing distress when they're doing it? Is it something that they can't stop? Or are they getting a bit of a kick out of it, swearing at the lunch lane? Is it... So now we're going to have a look at the school kid Tourette essentials now, which we touched on a bit before earlier. Understanding. So it's important to educate your school, it's important to educate the school about your child's Tourette's. And you can do this in a variety of ways. You could get your child to talk to the class, get a presentation up, and get them to go to the school and give a talk if they're confident enough. If not, parents can talk to the teacher. They can email them if they want. They can, go in and actually have a chat with their teachers. Or you can, contact TSAA. We're here to help, We can do presentations. I'll do a presentation. I'll go to your school. I don't mind. I did one yesterday. But also, important to understanding is to do your research. It's not so much just about educating the school about Tourette's or letting them understand what it is. You have to also understand it yourself. So, spend a week, every night for 1 week, look up something new about Tourette's you didn't know. Read through past medical documents, check out a list of documented tics online, watch YouTube videos of Tourette's. I don't get it all now. The next one, accommodation. Now this is pretty heavy with school, and I'm pretty aware of this. Firstly, you don't need a breakaway space for your child. I think that's very important. With the Tourette's and all that stuff, a lot of kids also deal with anxiety when they have the Tourette's. And when they're ticking or something and they know that ticks are going to come on, they need a space to go where they can chill out, breathe, and collect themselves. And in the beginning, the child may not do that, especially with ADHD. They might think, no, fine, I'm having fun, let's do it. But as they get older, they do start to tend to realise when they need to have a break. With me, with my ADHD as well, I sometimes feel myself getting hyper. When I got older, I'd say, okay, you know what, I'm going to go to another room. I know all my friends are there, but I'm going to go that way, just breathe and calm myself down. And it works the same way with Tourette's. If you're ticking a lot and you want to calm down, show the teacher a card or something, go out and just chill. I mean, my teachers, when I used to, in primary school, I used to go to, I'd arrive in class, and the teachers could see that I was very energetic and hyperactive and all that stuff. So they'd say, okay, before we start, Adam, go for a run around the courtyard. And I'd have to run like 5 laps around the courtyard. I'd come back so tired, but it worked, they loved it. Second is a private testing room. This is very important, especially in high school. If you're taking a test in the same, and you have Tourette's and you're in the same room as everyone else, you know how quiet exam rooms can be. And imagine having that feeling that you're about to make a noise, or even if it's just clearing a throat. Clearing a throat is loud in a quiet room. And for someone, most kids with Tourette's will be focusing on not ticking instead of actually doing the work. And if they're doing that, their grades are going to drop. Another thing that you can ask the school to kind of look into is less emphasis on timed tests. So while timing may be a necessity, in the earlier years of school, try and, if there's a quiz that takes 10 minutes, try and give them, ask the school to give them like 20, just kind of, they don't have as much stress, so they can tick as much as they want. It gives them kind of tick time, like after time for sport. I'm not a sporty person, I don't know. Another one, don't place in a distraction-prone zone. I made up that word last night, I think it's pretty cool. So, basically, ask your teacher, or ask the school's teacher, to maybe seat your child where, there isn't a window with a lovely view of the mountains and cars going across the street. Where there isn't computers next to them, or, there isn't toys or animals or something. Sit them somewhere where they're not going to get distracted so they can focus on their work. Another one, of course, is limit the foreign distractions. You don't want to let your child come into school with toys and stuff because they might get distracted with that. Binaural beats and white noise. Actually, I won't play an example here. I think no, it's not. Binaural beats and white noise, that's what I used to use in school. Ask for accommodation for that. Have headphones on when they're reading or something, and this is just white noise. And it works really well with concentration to kind of stop you getting distracted from external stimuli. Just going to skip ahead a bit. So for emotional support, obviously, do your research. That's the biggest thing. And another one, be proactive in talking to the teachers. Don't expect the teachers at your school, at your kid's school, to contact you when something's wrong. You need to be, I recommend for parents, if your kid's at school with Tourette's and there might be a bit of a problem, set up a fortnightly email. Just say to the teachers, I'm going to send you an email every fortnight just to see how my kid's doing, see if everything's going right, socially, academically, and all that stuff, just to make sure that they're on top of it, and if anything is wrong, you can talk about it. So obviously, the support for your child's TS needs, obviously one size does not fit all. One thing I found pretty helpful was an audio recording of the lesson, but leave it away from you, because otherwise you're going to be ticking over it, you can't hear it. Just to listen back on it. And obviously support for your other child's needs. I'll just skip right down to that bottom one with depression, because that is something that it is becoming a lot more talked about these days, but people still are a bit wary to talk about it. It's prevalent in about 25% of cases with Tourette's, and it is a very serious thing that, this is the only one I'd say, medication is probably the best way to go, but make sure you're looking out for that with signs with your kid. Most importantly, recognise and praise all the little accomplishments. Whether it's a A+ on a test or a win fortnight, let them know that they're doing a good job. So now the last little bit that's going to be pretty quick is just role models, more importantly TS role models. So basically, when I was on the voice and all stuff, when I came off, I was still a bit upset with where my life was going. I had no idea what direction it was taking. I had no idea, what anything was going to happen. And I needed a role model. So, of course, I was doing my Tick Twitch team there, which is my YouTube channel that I started to kind of help other people with Tourette's and all that stuff. Weekly videos, 240,000 plus subscribers, and, oh, that's weird, and well over 38 million views, so I'm pretty chuffed with that. And this is kind of what makes it all worth it for me. This is a kid that sent me through a video, the other night. It was his birthday. He has Tourette's and autism, and his parents emailed me asking me to say happy birthday to him. So I got this. If it loads. If it doesn't, I'll just skip to the next slide.
Got him.
It's not going to load. That's fine. Oh, where'd it go? Is there sound? I think it is.
Cocker spaniel.
No, that's fine. I'll just go to the next slide. That's all good. Yeah, that's fine. It's just. That's all good. So basically, I just want to talk about my TS role model. Obviously, the Twitch warrior, Ninja Twitch, James. Basically, I was a bit scared with what was happening in my life. I didn't know anyone older than me who had Tourette's. I was freaking out about relationships, about work, about everything with life friendship groups. And this guy basically let me know it's okay. I've hung out with him a ton, and he's, always giving me. I see him and what he's achieving. God, it makes me really hopeful that I'm going to be the same success as him. He let me realise that, I got into a internationally renowned South African choir boarding school back in the day, which that's a big achievement for me. I got into the top music school in Australia.
Fuck yeah, big people.
I met Delta Goodrum and became friends with her. I was in magazines all around Australia. I've met some fans that I'd never dreamed of having. I've got to perform with a diverse range of people all around the country. I've been on radio interviews quite a bit, which is kind of crazy. I've been able to film documentaries and TV shows. I've performed around Australia. I'm recording new music at the moment, which new singles out in December, so make sure you look out for that. I've lived a normal teenage life, and I've managed to find what I think is the love of my life as well. She's watching right now. But the point is, I live a normal life even though I have Tourette syndrome. I've done all this stuff even though I have Tourette syndrome. No matter what you're dealing with, you can still live a normal life. You can still achieve your greatest dreams. Whether you don't have to be recording and going on TV and stuff, but even if it's just becoming the best Fortnite player in Australia, that's it's pretty cool. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I've got a if you guys do have any events, book me your next events. Let me book that school Tourette's talk. My social media, check it out. But thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Adam. Never one to miss an opportunity. Let that be a life lesson. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
So good. Thank you.
Adam's here all day, so please take the opportunity to catch up with him in the breaks.
I'm going to take a selfie.
Great idea. The next speaker we have is Asia. If you'd like to come up. Now, Asia Elshake was on The Voice this year as well as a 15-year-old, and for those that don't know, she's actually my daughter. So I've asked her to speak today because we haven't had many female representatives with Tourette's, and she'll talk about her experience.
Right, I don't have a presentation, I'm not that cool. But I'm going to provide a bit of a different perspective, I think, because obviously, looking at me for like 5 seconds, you can tell I've had a different experience to Adam, including some similarities as well, but it's going to be personal. So my name is Asia, as you know. I'm 16 years old now. I live on the northern beaches. I go to Manly Selective High School. I actually have a hockey game this afternoon. I'm not very good at cooking, and I have Tourette syndrome, which you probably didn't notice if I walked in the room. If you hadn't seen me speaking at a specific Tourette's conference, you might not even consider it. And for so many people with TS, this is what it actually looks like, which is why part of the reason why it often goes undiagnosed. And as Adam said in his presentation, it's what's behind the tics, especially mild tics, that most people don't think about and don't know about, such as sleep problems, anxiety, obsessive compulsive behaviours, which are to most days pretty mild for me, so I rarely identify them as such. But every now and then the symptoms reappear, and they remind me that no condition is linear or constant, especially with something as unpredictable as Tourette's. And it's just like normal emotions, it comes and goes, and it can be hard to identify as part of your disorder. Meeting other kids with much more obvious symptoms has really opened my eyes at camps and things like that. And hopefully seeing me, the other end of the spectrum, will help open your eyes a bit as well. When tics are mild, it can be difficult to differentiate from normal habits or reactions to my environment. And it can be confusing sometimes, especially because I've known about my TS my whole life, since I can remember, since I was about 4, I think I was diagnosed. So I've always had an explanation to go to. And I can't imagine not really having a reason, and I think it would cause a lot of questioning and confusion for some people who don't have the diagnosis. For example, you know, I used to have this arm tic, and I used to wear a watch on the same hand, so I was like, is it because I wear a watch or has it become a tic? And sometimes they do stem from your environment, so it can be a bit confusing. And so if you didn't have the word Tourette's to help explain it, how could you ask yourself these questions and figure out which ones are your tics and which are just habits? So another perk of having mild symptoms, or a difficult choice depending on how you look at it, is that I could have chosen to keep my TS a secret my whole life. I rarely get asked by my classmates. I don't think I've ever been stopped by a stranger to ask what's going on with me. And when I tell people I have Tourette's, the reaction's never been singling me out or labelling me or anything like that. It's usually shock or surprise, and they ask me questions. And so I'm very lucky that I've never had to explain myself apart from my own choice, and everyone should have a choice to feel like they can be comfortable in their own skin and let people know when they feel right about it. And I choose to be open, not because I have to, but because I really want to. I want to communicate to people what Tourette's is all about, and I want people to understand all the different manifestations of Tourette's. And everyone wants to be accepted for who they are, and it's taken me a little bit to realise that my TS does give me a unique viewpoint on life, and that it's not the only special thing about me at all, and that's the same with everyone with Tourette's. It gives you your own outlook on life, and you can choose to embrace that and use it to help others as well as yourself if you want to. And whether I'm aware of it or not, Tourette's does influence every aspect of my life in some way, which is why it's important to understand how it works as well as not let it define you as a person. And you can't choose how your Tourette's approaches you, but you can choose how you approach it. And in day-to-day life, I think this is really important. You have to focus on being positive, and you know, I consider myself very lucky to have a comparatively easy experience, but it has been difficult in the context of my own life, and we have to recognise that we're all different. Like Adam said, there's no one size fits all, using all your cliches here. And that's really what I want to get across to you guys today. It's all about recognising differences and embracing them and adjusting your outlook on life to fit your own experiences.
Thank you, Aisha. Now, our third speaker is Cameron, who's flown all the way down from Brisbane. Cameron Schubert has been at a number of our camps and has been a really amazing spokesperson for us and representing Queensland in this last year's awareness campaign as well. So I'll hand over to Cameron.
Hey guys, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Cameron, and I've got Tourette syndrome as well, and I was diagnosed about 2.5 years ago. So today I just wanted to speak about Queensland Tourette's camps, and just want to let you know about them and that they're great fun and everything. And so personally, what I like about camp is that you can just be yourself. Just let all your tics out. You don't need to think that you have to keep all your tics in. You can just be with everybody. Everyone's there and really understanding. It's really good. At the camps, it's good because what you can do at the camps is you can just hang out with people, get to know them, talk about your experiences, and you can if you or the other person have the same experiences, you can share your experiences. So yeah, there's heaps of fun activities to do, and that's really good. And there's lots of great benefits. So like I was saying, you can just be yourself, make heaps of new friends, and that's I think that's really good. And in Queensland we have a business support group, so we meet pretty regularly. We usually go to maybe a water park or a park, and people just show up and the parents talk. They just ask questions and they talk, and the kids just can hang around with each other and have a good time, you know. A good thing for me about the support group is I've made heaps of new friends with Tourette's, and it's really great because now I know that I'm not the only one out there suffering from Tourette's, and with Tourette's, and it's really good to know that there's other people out there and you can help each other. For any of you guys that live in Queensland or Brisbane, our next get together is 5th of August at Tourette. So yeah.
Clean.
So here are some pictures of the camp. So I'm gonna go on to talking about this year's camp now. Okay. So the camp this year, it's in September. It's on the 29th of September. Yeah. Wait. 29th of September to 1st of October. We're gonna have four main activities that the camp set up, and the activities are gonna be tire floating, crate climbing, and an obstacle course, and pirates. The cost per person is $100. And there's gonna be some other things we're gonna be doing, like tie dyeing shirts, spring printing shirts. We're gonna have some games, campfire with dampers, and I also just Adam and James have been a real big help for me over as long as I've known them. And when Adam was on The Voice, I was pretty down at that time, and he really helped me. So I'd like to say thanks to Adam and James. And I'd just like to make one special mention before I go. So this T-shirt I'm wearing today, this kid in the States sent it over from the States to me, and I'd just like to make a special mention to him. I'd like to say thanks to him for sending it over. It really means a lot. So thank you everybody for letting me speak and sharing all about the camps. So thank you.